My name is Chloe Peterson, and I am 28 years old. I live in Maplewood, New Jersey, in a cozy apartment filled with more books than furniture and enough plants to start a small botanical garden. I work as a marketing strategist, which means I spend my days thinking about how people communicate, what makes messages stick, and how to build genuine connections. I value authenticity, intelligent conversation, and people who truly listen. I'm not the loudest person in the room, but I enjoy my close-knit group of friends. We have shared so many laughs, so many dinners, and so many of life's big moments together. Our gatherings, whether it was a potluck, a game night, or just a casual dinner, used to be my favorite part of the week. There was a warmth there, a sense of belonging that meant the world to me. Then Mark started. Mark, who has been part of our friend group since college, is undeniably charismatic. He's usually loud, often the life of the party, always ready with a quick joke or a witty remark. For a long time, I just thought that was his way, but then his jokes started to shift. They became directed at me, always framed as harmless fun, but with a subtle, sharp edge that only I seemed to feel. It was never a direct insult, never something I could point to and say, that hurt. Instead, it was always a sly comment, a casual aside that made me the punchline. He would say things like, Chloe will spend an hour analyzing why the pizza is round instead of just eating it, implying I overthink everything. Or better not ask Chloe for a quick opinion, you will get a full thesis statement, suggesting I was too verbose, too serious. Sometimes, if I seemed a bit quiet, he would quip, someone sensitive today must be the alignment of the planets, right, Chloe, mocking my perceived emotionality or my intellectual bent. The group would laugh along, at first because Mark was genuinely funny, but then it became a habit, or maybe even out of discomfort, I wasn't sure. It felt like a slow burn of frustration and hurt inside me. I noticed the micro expressions, the subtle shifts in how others started to perceive me, seeing me through Mark's lens. My intelligence and thoughtfulness, qualities I cherished about myself, were being twisted into social awkwardness, even flaws. It chipped away at who I felt I was in that group, threatening my identity and my comfort. I was deeply unsatisfied with how things were, but I couldn't seem to stop him. I tried everything I thought I was supposed to do. My first strategy was to laugh it off. I would force a chuckle, a lighthearted smile, hoping that by showing it didn't bother me, he would stop. But it felt hollow, and I could see in Mark's eyes that he interpreted my forced laughter as permission, as validation. The jokes continued, sometimes even intensifying after I laughed, as if I had signaled that I was a willing participant in his little show. Next, I tried ignoring it. I would pretend I hadn't heard his comment, shifting my gaze, talking to someone else, or getting up to refresh my drink. But Mark was relentless. He would just repeat his jab louder or frame it as me being lost in thought again, making another joke about my perceived lack of presence. He would not let it go until he got some kind of reaction, even if it was just everyone else's nervous laughter. Then I attempted to joke back, hoping to deflect his humor with my own wit. I would try to craft a clever retort, something light but firm, but Mark was always quicker, always more practiced in this particular social combat. He would twist my joke into another jab at me, making me look defensive and humorless. Wow, Chloe's got a comeback. He once exclaimed, loud enough for everyone to hear. Guess she finally looked up a good retort in her dictionary of obscure phrases. The group would laugh, and I would feel my face flush with embarrassment. Finally, I tried changing the subject, steering the conversation away from me and his comments. I would launch into a story about work or ask someone else about their weekend. But Mark would just bring it back, making a joke about my sudden topic shifts, or how I was trying to apply a logical framework to a casual conversation. Nothing I did worked. It only seemed to feed his need for attention and make me feel worse. The cumulative effect of all this was devastating. I started to dread social gatherings. Events that had once been the highlight of my week became a source of intense anxiety. My stomach would churn before I even left my apartment, anticipating the next comment, the next put-down. My friends, well-meaning though they were, started to internalize Mark's narrative. I overheard snippets of conversations, innocent comments like, oh, Chloe's just the serious one, or you know how Chloe can be, a bit sensitive sometimes, as if these were universally accepted truths. It was as if Mark had successfully sculpted their perception of me, and I was powerless to change it. I remember one particularly painful evening at a party. A new acquaintance, someone I had just met, approached me and said, oh, you're Chloe, the one who thinks really hard about everything, right? It was a direct echo of one of Mark's frequent jabs, and it hurt more than any direct insult. Later, when I tried to share a genuine thought about a new art exhibit, someone prefaced their response with, okay, Chloe, no long lectures now, making me feel foolish for even attempting to share something I cared about. I confided in my best friend Sarah, telling her how Mark's jokes really hurt me, how they made me feel small and misunderstood. Sarah, kind and usually so perceptive, just waved her hand dismissively. Oh, Mark's just being Mark, you know how he is, she said, without really looking at me. Don't take it so seriously. Her words, intended to comfort, only made me feel more isolated and profoundly misunderstood. It was like she was telling me I was indeed too sensitive, just as Mark had always implied. I felt utterly defeated. I started to internalize some of Mark's jabs, questioning whether I really was too serious, too analytical, too sensitive. My self esteem plummeted, and I found myself withdrawing from the group, making excuses to miss gatherings. The thought of enduring another evening of his predictable, undermining comments filled me with a deep, consuming dread. One evening, alone in my apartment, I caught myself staring at my reflection in the darkened window. I saw the person Mark described, not the person I knew I was. I felt trapped, as if my identity was being stolen piece by piece, my true self slowly eroding under the constant barrage of his humor. The thought of cutting ties with the entire friend group, leaving behind years of shared history and cherished relationships, flashed through my mind, an unbearable prospect. But the alternative, staying and continuing to be his silent victim, felt equally unbearable. I was losing myself, and I felt like I was losing my friends too. The frustration that had simmered for so long boiled over, transforming into a quiet, cold fury. It was then that I realized direct confrontation was futile. Mark thrived on emotional reactions. I needed a different weapon, something he wouldn't expect, something that would dismantle his entire act without giving him the satisfaction of my anger. Lying awake one night, replaying countless conversations and Mark's comments, a sudden clarity washed over me. His jokes weren't about humor at all, they were about control and the reaction he elicited. He needed me to squirm, to defend myself, to show some kind of emotional distress. If I took away that reaction, his entire act would collapse. It wasn't an angry realization, but a cold, calculated strategy forming in my mind. My new approach would be radical literalism. No emotion, no sarcasm, just pure, unblinking logic. I would relentlessly ask for clarification until his humor was exposed for what it truly was, empty and cruel. My chance came a few weeks later at a birthday dinner for our mutual friend David. Mark was in typical form, loud and boisterous. As the evening wore on and everyone grew more relaxed, he zeroed in on me. I had been quietly listening to a conversation about local politics. "Wow, Chloe's really quiet tonight," Mark announced to the table, his voice carrying over the chat. "Probably dissecting the menu's font choice, right?" A few chuckles rippled through the table. This was it. I took a deep breath, my face neutral, my voice steady, devoid of any hint of emotion. "Mark," I began, looking him directly in the eye, "what exactly about a menu's font choice makes you believe I am dissecting it? And furthermore, how does that activity relate to my current state of being quiet?" The table went silent, the initial chuckles dying quickly. Mark, clearly thrown off by my unexpected response, tried to regain control. "It's just a joke, Chloe, relax," he said, a forced laugh escaping him. My gaze remained unwavering. "I understand it is intended as a joke, Mark. However, I am requesting that you please explain which specific part of your statement is meant to be humorous. I genuinely do not comprehend its comedic value." The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Eyes darted between Mark and me. Mark, visibly uncomfortable now, tried to laugh it off again, attempting to make another joke to diffuse the tension, but I just waited, my posture relaxed, my expression calm. "What precisely do you mean by that, Mark?" I continued, my voice still level. "Can you be more specific about the humor you are attempting to convey in your comment about menu fonts?" Mark stammered, his usual quick wit failing him. "You know what I mean," he finally mumbled, looking around the table for support, but finding only bewildered expressions. "No, Mark," I replied, my voice gentle but firm, "I really do not know what you mean. I am respectfully requesting a precise clarification of the comedic element you believe to be present." The energy of the room shifted entirely, from mild amusement to palpable discomfort for Mark. This wasn't a one-time event. Over the next few weeks, I deployed this tactic consistently. Every single time Mark tried to make me the punchline, I met him with the same polite, calm, and utterly literal inquiry. His jokes, once delivered with such confidence, started to fall flat. The forced laughter from the group died out quickly, replaced by an awkward silence. My friends, who had been conditioned to laugh, now hesitated, observing Mark's behavior with new eyes, seeing the casual cruelty beneath his charming veneer. Mark became increasingly flustered, embarrassed, and even angry. His humor disappeared entirely because he no longer got the emotional reaction he craved from me. He started to avoid me, his confidence visibly shaken. Eventually, he stopped making jokes about me altogether because it simply wasn't fun for him anymore. He had lost his audience, and more importantly, he had lost his target. A profound sense of peace and vindication washed over me. My confidence, which had been so eroded, returned stronger than ever. I hadn't just stopped Mark, I had redefined my place within our friend group. My friends, seeing my quiet strength and the way I handled Mark, started treating me with a renewed respect. Some even told me privately how impressed they were, how they had always noticed Mark's comments but hadn't known what to do. The group dynamic shifted, becoming healthier and less reliant on one person's performative, belittling humor. Mark slowly faded into the background. He was no longer the center of attention, his quick wit now seen as mean-spirited rather than charming. He had lost his power and his social standing, a slow, quiet dethroning that left him floundering for relevance. I wasn't gloating, but I felt fulfilled. I was simply living authentically, surrounded by people who saw and valued the real me. Months later, at another casual gathering at Sarah's apartment, Mark, perhaps out of habit or a desperate attempt to regain his old footing, tried one of his old jabs at another friend. This time, he targeted David, a usually quiet guy who was enthusiastically explaining the finer points of his new photography hobby. Mark cut him off with a smirk. Wow, David, you really turn a casual chat into a technical manual, don't you? Some of us just like to look at pretty pictures, not get a full lecture on f-stops. A moment of stunned silence followed. Then, to my surprise and quiet delight, David, usually one to just shrug off such comments, looked at Mark with a calm, level gaze that mirrored my own from weeks before. Mark, David began, his voice steady, can you elaborate on the comedic element you're attempting to highlight with that comment about technical manuals and f-stops? I'm not entirely following your logic or the humorous intent. A few quiet chuckles rippled around the room, not at David, but at Mark, whose face had gone pale. I exchanged a knowing look with Sarah, a small, subtle smile playing on my lips. Mark, utterly defeated, mumbled something incoherent about never mind and quickly changed the subject himself. In that moment, I realized my revenge wasn't just about reclaiming my own space, it was about shifting the entire social ecosystem. My actions had created a new standard for genuine connection and respect within our shared circle, a ripple effect I had never anticipated.